Jeff Zito. Thank you for checking out another episode of the Celebrity Jobber Podcast. Streaming on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Please subscribe. Would love a 5-star rating, and please leave a review. You can check out past guests and episodes online at celebrityjobber.com, digging into the history of some celebrities to find out what put them on the path to stardom. Some have known what they wanted to do at a very early age, and sometimes it was kind of by accident that these celebrities ended up where they're at. My guest this week is the lead Washington anchor for CNN and hosts the weekly television news show The Lead with Jake Tapper. We'll find out more about his early life, what he originally aspired to do for a career, the moment that changed everything for him, and his first job. He's been involved in a little bit of controversy earlier this year with his book, Original Sin, President Biden's Decline, Its Cover-Up, and his disastrous choice to run again, which actually came out after his very public defensive comments on behalf of the former president regarding his mental acuity while in office. And we'll talk about his latest book, Race Against Terror, Chasing an Al-Qaeda Killer at the Dawn of the Forever War. CNN journalist Jake Tapper is my guest this week on Celebrity Jobber.
The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, give a 5-star rating, and leave a review. Check out all our past episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you pod. What if these celebrities weren't famous? What would they have become? What was their first job? We're about to find out.
Jake, you're here to talk about a new book just after you put out a book about the former president. I had no idea you wrote this much.
Well, this one I've been working on for 3 years.
Okay.
And I started writing it 3 years ago. So this one was pretty much the first draft was done last year. And then the Biden book I wrote, Original Sin, that I co-wrote with Alex Thompson, that was a crash from November to March.
Gotcha.
So it's the illusion of churning out a book every 6 months, but that's not really what happened.
Is this something that you enjoy doing? Because when I hear people are writing books for whatever reason, it gives me anxiety. I'm like, wow, I mean, it's something that I would love to be able to do, but for some reason it gives me anxiety when I hear, this so-and-so is writing a book.
I love it. If I didn't love it, I wouldn't do it. I mean, I don't need to do it. It's fun. I mean, it's usually some topic that I really want to dive deeper in than I can do in daily journalism. And there is nobody in daily journalism. You're not going to cover in daily journalism a story like this because it's not. It didn't. The story starts in 2003 and ends in 2018. So it's not new. But you can go deeper. And this story was so interesting to me because it was just about the detective work that these prosecutors did to lock up this Al-Qaeda terrorist. And if they didn't do it, he was basically going to be freed by the Italians. And then he would go on and kill as many Americans as possible. So when I first heard this story, I was like, this is incredible. This is like the best episode of CSI ever. So that's what made it so fun for me.
Have you seen the Tucker Carlson video or documentary, whatever that is? Have you watched any of that?
Which one? The one about 9/11?
The one about 9/11.
I've seen clips of it.
What's your take? What was your take on it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can't really give an assessment of the whole thing because I haven't seen the whole thing. But he seems to. Well, you know what? I'm gonna do him the service of saying I should see the whole thing before I assess it. He says a lot of things that I don't think are backed up by fact.
Right.
I'll just put it that way.
Okay.
The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito. Celebrity Jobber.
Take me back, Jake, all the way back. You're growing up. When did you want to get into media? And when you were younger, what exact direction were you looking to get into?
Oh, I didn't want to become a journalist. It's weird actually because I did a a neighborhood newspaper when I was a kid, 8 or whatever, and I was the editor of my high school newspaper, but I didn't decide I wanted to go into journalism until I was in my 20s. and I started writing freelance stories. I was kind of like I didn't know what I wanted to do for a living, and I just was doing public relations just to pay the bills.
Right.
And then I started writing freelance stories, and that's when I got really interested in journalism.
So what was your major in college?
History. I was a history major.
History major.
Which I loved because it was just, and I think there's a lot of truth, and people say that, journalism is the first draft of history. I think there's a lot of truth to that.
And what was your original plan with being a history major? Did you plan on being a professor, or what were you thinking you were going to do with the degree?
I wanted to be a cartoonist.
Really?
I wanted to be a political cartoonist. Yeah, I wanted to be like the next Doonesbury. I wanted to be like Gary Trudeau. I wanted to do like political and socially relevant comic strip cartoons. And I got close once. I had a comic strip, and I would talk to somebody with a Universal Press Syndicate in Kansas City, but it didn't ultimately happen. And that's when I took a job in PR because I needed to pay the bills. My parents weren't going to let me live in the basement for the rest of my life. So I started doing that. And while I was doing that, I started, I was writing, I was cartooning, and eventually freelance journalism became something I really liked. And then I got hired as a full-time journalist by a local free weekly in D.C. called Washington City Paper.
The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito. The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito.
Was there a story or a book or something, a big break, if you will, or a moment in your career that kind of changed your life's trajectory?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was just that I was doing so much freelance work for City Paper. I had been trying to pitch stuff and get hired by the Washington Post, but it never, I sold them freelance stories, but they never really were interested in hiring me. And then I just kept on writing, and then City Paper started assigning me stories. So it wasn't just ideas I brought them. And, but if I had to pick one, there was one time I went to a party, and the people at this party had this really interesting story where it turned out, the long story short of it is that it turned out that they lived in a former bordello. And there were all these things in the house that suggested a bordello, and all these people that would come by the house that suggested a bordello. And so I pitched it ended up being a story in the Washington City Paper. I think it was the first story I wrote for Washington City Paper, because it was just like a funny kind of weird story about a local house.
Right.
And that probably was a huge break. And actually, interestingly enough, this book, Race Against Terror, that is out, that started also with me at a party hearing a story from somebody, and I just said to myself, "Oh, that's an incredible story. Has anybody ever written that story down? Has that been covered?" And that was the story of a prosecutor being told of an Al-Qaeda terrorist, and basically the U.S. had to prove the case against this terrorist, and then before the Italians would let the U.S. take him to the U.S. to prosecute him. And so it was just this incredible story of sleuthing, of fingerprints and witness testimony and counterterrorism and secret documents. And that story was so interesting, and it's now this book,
Wow.
Race Against Terror. So the lesson is, if you're at a party, listen to the stories, because maybe you can turn it into a book.
Right. You can be a part of this person's history. What about your very first job, Jake? Can you tell me what your very, very first paycheck was?
Baskin Robbins. I worked at Baskin Robbins starting in 10th grade, scooping ice cream, making waffles for waffle cones, making sundaes, watching people destroy their delicious milkshakes by putting malted in it. And I did that for about 10th grade, 11th grade, for almost 3 years. I did that. That was a great experience. Rode my bike 3 miles to the Baskin Robbins, and then rode my bike back. Kind of can't believe that, but this is a different era, right? This is the 80s as opposed to today.
Right.
Kind of can't believe that my parents let me ride a bike 3 miles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just saying the other day.
Closing time.
Yeah. I was just saying the other day, I can't believe my parents at 16 years old let me drive across country during spring break. I cannot believe. It's a different world, though. It's a different world.
Really, yeah. I don't know if it's better or worse. I'm trying to think. I guess because I'm 56. How old are you?
50.
Okay. I guess because our parents were from a generation that they were, within a few years of the Depression and World War II,
right,
that the idea of driving across country when you're 16 or riding a bike 3 miles in the dark close to midnight from your ice cream job, I guess that didn't sound so rough.
Right.
But I don't think I would ever let my kids do that. Ride a bike 3 miles in the dark?
Definitely not.
No way.
Definitely not.
Celebrity Jobber. The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito.
Race Against Terror, chasing an Al-Qaeda killer at the dawn of the Forever War. Jake Tapper, are you optimistic about where we are today as a country, or what are your thoughts?
I'm concerned about a lot of things having to do with the country, but I'm optimistic long term because this is the United States of America, and I do think we have a set of ideals that distinguish us from other countries, ideals that have to do with democracy and freedom. But I am concerned about some of the things going on, and I am very concerned about how divided we all seem, for sure.
I agree. Race Against Terror, chasing an Al-Qaeda killer at the dawn of the Forever War. Jake Tapper, thank you so much. Really appreciate the talk.
Thank you.
Jake Tapper, born in New York City, raised in Philadelphia. His mother, a psychiatric nurse at the Philadelphia Veterans Affairs Medical Center, and his father, originally from Chicago, graduate from Jake's alma mater, Dartmouth, and also Harvard Medical School, went on to serve as the president of South Philadelphia Pediatrics and associate clinical professor of pediatrics at Jefferson Medical College. So both parents in the medical field. Jake's original plan was to become a political cartoonist, which I thought was interesting. But he notes that his big break was a story that he wrote for the Washington City paper about a house he was in at a party that used to be a brothel, and says that story got published and kind of catapulted his career. A similar story Jake wrote about going to a party and a quote-unquote first date with Monica Lewinsky just weeks before the scandal with former President Bill Clinton broke. Wonder if that story was actually his real big break. And Jake's first job, along with a number of other past guests on the Celebrity Jobber podcast, including Shark Tank investor Kevin O'Leary, a.k.a. Mr. Wonderful, just so happened to be at a Baskin-Robbins ice cream shop. That was Jake's first job. Again, a very popular first job, scooping ice cream. New York Times bestselling author, CNN anchor, and chief Washington correspondent Jake Tapper. Information about his latest book, Race Against Terror, and more on his website, jaketapper.com. Hey, he could have been a political cartoonist, if not for that one date with Monica Lewinsky. Thank you so much for checking out another episode of the Celebrity Jobber podcast. You can follow on Instagram, celebrity_jobber_podcast, or the YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/the@celebrityjobber. Streaming on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, or wherever you get your podcasts. Please subscribe. We'd love a 5-star rating, and please leave a review. And again, past guests and episodes are online at celebrityjobber.com. Once again, I thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Celebrity Jobber podcast. And until next week, I'll see you then. I'm Jeff Zito.